Today we're going to be talking about technology, information, data. We're going to be talking about the value of FM. Is that bottom line or top line? The FM's effect on the workplace. Where does that sit now? And just when I thought I was going to get a day away from it, we're also going to be talking about Brexit. So that should provide some lively debate. So that's me done for now. I'll be seeing a lot of you during the sessions during the day, and I'll hand over to Michael Roper from SAP to start the first session.
Good morning. Welcome to the panel debate. I very much want this to be a very interactive session, so we'll be posing questions to the distinguished panel, but if you have questions, observations, comments in the room, put your hand up and I'm going to pull you into the debate. Paul, I think, has got a couple of mics if you're at the back and so on as well. So, we have here with us representatives of some of the UK's largest companies, in fact Europe's largest companies, and facilities leaders in those companies. So I think we've got a pretty distinguished panel. And I'm going to ask each panel member to introduce themselves. So, Jason, from the start. Yeah.
Jason UBS, financial organisation with 65,000 employees around the globe. My role is the regional head of property management. So that's engineering and fabric maintenance projects and mission critical facilities, which is our data centres.
My name's Sarah Lodge. I'm EMEA Facilities Director for Turner Broadcasting. Nobody knows what we do. So we are CNN, Cartoon Network, HBO, and about 3 other channels that you probably watch. We're owned by Time Warner, and we're just being bought by AT&T, so we're in chaos. And I'm called Facilities Director, but actually that encompasses all property and lease management as well for EMEA.
Peter Terry, Head of Facilities for John Lewis Partnership, which is Waitrose and John Lewis Estates. So a decent sized portfolio, that's 68,000 employees, or partners as we call them. And so everything that goes with all of those things.
Hi, I'm Kevin Conroy. I'm the Engineering Director for Tesco's across all the countries. So that's Thailand, Malaysia, Europe, UK and Ireland. I'm also the UK Engineering Director, so I'm responsible for delivery in country, and I look after Tesco Maintenance, which looks after about 3,500 stores, about 30 distribution centres, some automated and some not, and a few head offices and a data centre.
Thank you. And I'm Mike Roper, and I look after facilities and real estate for the EMEA region for SAP. We're a very large software company, about 80,000 people, around $27 billion turnover. Okay, so the debate is about the role of FM as an enabler in executing business strategy. So I think the obvious place to start is, what is business strategy? So I think I'm going to ask the panellists what they consider to be business strategy, and then we'll go on to about how FM can support that. So I'm going to start in no particular order, because he's writing with Peter.
Oh, God. So ultimately, anything that we do should be there to support, drive the overall business strategy. I think from a standpoint of, I previously worked at Tesco before I came to the partnership, it's quite easy for us actually to do that, because if you've always got customer service in mind, and our business has got customer service in mind, and there's a clear strategy around, whether that's shops, whether that's online or whatever, it's easy to draw a line. So strategy for us is, it's not something over there that we've got to go chase and we don't know, because we're part of it right the way through the chain. So we don't feel like this little dog at the end, or this sort of tail that gets the last bit and, oh, by the way, can you do X? We're part of the strategy right the way through. So direction of travel, emerging thinking, horizon scanning, and all those things that happen at the board level, it's a relatively easy company in some respects to get sighted of all of that. So it's not very difficult actually for us to make sure that our strategy is aligned with the overall strategy. But the reality is, if you don't do that, there's a disconnect. Therefore, you don't become enablers, you become blockers to what the business want to do, and therefore you're not aligned to the overall goal. So I guess that's my initial thinking. Then now I'll think about it and I'll say something different.
We'll come back to you.
That's
So,
all right. No, please do.
UBS business strategy.
So not dissimilar. So I think it's important every year we make sure that our goals and objectives align directly to the vision and the strategy for the organisation. Our vision for our division is to operate as an integrated division, delivering competitive solutions through digital innovation and operational excellence. What does that mean? If you think about those words, that's everything we do. So connected, collaborating with our service delivery partners, innovative in terms of driving that transformation of our services and finding new ways of working and operating. Excellence through quality management, through ISO 14001, 50001, 55001. All of those demonstrate that we are delivering excellence and it's being measured and it's being audited. And then obviously most of all is being commercial thinking, optimising front to back value chain. How does that really translate into FM? It's transparency, predictable costs, meeting financial plans, awards and recognition, making sure that we're celebrating what we do, uptime and risk management, obviously network connectivity, power connectivity. If we talk about frictionless services, the first thing you're going to do is turn the power off, you can upset people. So it's making sure that they're connected, right? They've got uptime.
Thank you. So Tesco, Kevin.
Yeah, our company's it's been in a turnaround for the last 3 years. We, in that time, we've really looked at what's the purpose of Tesco's. So, because Tesco's was a view to be all things to all men. So we've got a purpose. So our chief exec defined the purpose with the exec, which is to serve Britain shoppers a little better every day, which is dead simple, which is something that you can relate to. The business then came out with strategic direction of, shore up the balance sheet to sort out the brand. So make sure that people actually looked at a brand and decided that it was a company you'd want to either work with, or it was a company that you'd want to go and shop with. And from there, we've now got some key strategic drivers which we share with investment companies, which is maximise property, what we get, the value you get from property, which is one of them, to max the mix and how you get better margins and how you generate cash. So we've got 9 billion cash that we're going to generate. So we've got these 6 key strategic drivers. It's then, from that perspective, that then breaks down into the business, into what does that mean for you? And if you're working on something that doesn't add value and doesn't relate to those 6 key strategic drivers, then you shouldn't be doing it. So we have those drivers, and for us it's then about how do you relate to the purpose and how do you relate to the drivers, and if you're doing that, then you're working in the right areas.
Thank you. Sarah, you're in flux at the moment. I've deliberately given you more thinking time.
Yeah.
But what do you consider business strategy as your evolving organisation?
Well, we're in a really interesting position at the moment because we're being bought. We're owned by an American company anyway, but we're being purchased by another American company. So we're, from a strategy perspective, in a big period of growth. All our labels are also growing, all of our brands. From a facilities property perspective, that's chaos because we really don't know how we're going to support that business strategy until it's confirmed. And we're in the middle of reviewing our London office, which is 1,200 staff, 4 different companies, and a very possible relocation. So trying to tie in what we're doing from a facilities perspective to support that strategy is almost impossible, but very exciting because we're right in that mix, and facilities is at board level at the current time, which doesn't normally happen within Turner. So a very exciting time for us to get involved right at the roots of what the company wants to be for the next 5 years. Just won't be sure for about 6 months what that means. So it's trying to support the business as it is now while you're doing your 3-5-year plan and not knowing actually what's coming out at the end of it.
It's an interesting point. I mean, we do a lot of acquisitions, but facilities becomes a major enabler for the success of the integration of those acquisitions. So you have a great part to play in the coming months for sure. Anything from the floor in terms of business strategy or questions to any of the panelists about their business strategy? No, not at the moment. Okay, so...
He's got one.
Oh, we've got one here. Okay.
We could hear you. Great.
One of the words I always find, I do a lot of FM consultancy work, but I'm also an M&E consultant. And one of the things I always find seems to be at the root of all of our problems in FM is a lack of the word design. No one ever takes the time to understand where the process starts. So when you get to the end and everybody says, oh, there's a problem with this, you ask yourself the question, well, how did we end up with this in the first place? Who set the brief? Did we understand exactly what we were going to be getting? And that ties in with the business strategy, because you can't get a good result if you don't know what it's like history. You know, how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you've come from? So how do you find design incorporates into a lot of the FM work you do? Because frankly, a lot of the time I find it's like the dirty word, it's never even mentioned.
Yeah. So we were talking to some degree about it last night over dinner actually, but there's something about thinking about your end game and working back from there. And if you work back properly and diligently and thoroughly, you'll make sure that when you're designing the front end, you're designing it for the end. And ultimately that's quite linear, that's easy to do on paper. But ultimately the engagement, the collaboration, the relationships and the culture within an organisation either makes that successful or not. And clearly we all have lots of examples, that we've got within our own organisations in our past about where that's worked and where it hasn't. But I think it's very clear, the better engagement, the better it is, the higher up it is on the agenda. And at some point businesses understand that when you get it wrong, this is the impact. And it's not only a financial impact, it's a quality impact, it's a brand impact, it's a people impact, it's a service delivery impact. Therefore, it kind of doesn't make sense not to do it the right way. But there's lots of examples within our own organisations, as well as everywhere else, that it works to within a spectrum. However, the other dynamic that we find, or that I've seen, is that there's something around the general leadership that people come and go, and that has an impact on the degree of collaboration, the degree of engagement, and how high up that is in the level of importance with an organisation. And when you get it right, it's absolutely brilliant. But when you got it where it's not, then it can be pretty, I wouldn't say toxic, but it's a bit of a pain. It can be a bit of a pain.
It's particularly pertinent, your question, to what we're going through at the moment, because to your point, the importance of getting your board on side. I have a board of 14 for EMEA, and none of them have ever done a major relocation. So no pressure, but I'm kind of the only person that's ever done this. I'm not a board member, I'm not a VP, I don't lead the business, and they're all looking to me and my 7 professional independent advisors. But it's a big piece of work, and at the moment my biggest challenge is I've got too many stakeholders. I've got too many business leaders saying this is how we want our building site business to look, and trying to get them to come to an agreement is my biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Common ground. Can I just add to that? So for me, it's one simple: soft landings. Engage the operators from the start. FM are an equal player at the table. Architects and engineers are not the experts in designing buildings alone. There's a third party, and that's the operators. So the quicker you engage the FM and your teams and the users through collaboration, through champions, the better outcome you're going to get, thinking of starting with the end in mind. And then not only making sure they're engaged in every single gateway, but allowing them, in the same way that you're allowed your commissioning period, the operational teams need their readiness testing. So they'll highlight all of your failings as engineers and architects in that 6 to 8 weeks before we open, as they speak. So all of your kitchen ventilation issues will all come out when they start cooking burgers on grill pans.
I think when you talk about M&E design equipment, I think your design goes back to your organisation. So have you got an organisation design? Who does what? The processes? Have you got a framework that then allows to identify who the right people that should be engaged and what processes and standards you work through? Then you've then got to think about engagement. So most of us do project planning, but not a lot of us look at change management, and then none of us look at change leadership. So I see a lot of projects and a lot of things that you do where it's all about the rational side, This is what we do when we do it. This is who does it. But nobody thinks about how do you engage people emotionally, and then more importantly, what's the leadership of that change? So are you trying to do slow steady, or are you looking for something that's impactful? And then you're trying to understand this. How do you apply that? So for me, it's about are you being artifact driven? So you want to get a certificate, or are you doing it because it's a problem? And that will then define your change leadership. And then the hardest bit is then transition management, because no plan that I've ever done has ever been delivered to what I thought, and it's about how you manage through that process.
Some really interesting comments. And I think in our industry, it's more about people and the customer. Designing something from the customer backwards is should be the default mechanism of what we should all be doing. And I think we got better. There's a long way to go, but we got better at doing it.
But there are there's some challenges in that, certainly within a retail background, because the way people are shopping now, what they want to shop, how they want to shop, when they want to shop, where they want to shop is changing. We've had this great big push on physical estates, bricks and all the rest of it. Over the last decade, there's clearly been a shift towards online, and therefore that's a big shift. There was one way of doing it, and now there's loads. And so, what the strategy was for creating this physical estate, and the nice easy things around, what it should look like, and the lights and the carpet and the rest of it, and the sorts of floors and, those physical environments. When you look back, that's quite simple. Trying to forecast and think what the future trends are, doing what you do now and getting better at that, and figuring out if there's any more change coming, the way that people want to shop, and planning ahead for that's more challenging. Exciting, but it's difficult to plan ahead for and foresee at this point in time. Because we wouldn't have said 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, it's all going to go online, and therefore don't worry about your great big, estate you're growing at 2,000 shops a week. It's a different thing. Please.
So we talk quite a lot about designing the strategy for FM from the customer backwards, but there are also some other strategic objectives that we've got to take into account. If you ask a customer what he wants, there's compromise around cost. My customers would want facilities that the EBIT ambitions of the business would never be able to support, and also the safety as well. So if you look at the cost environment we're in at the moment, we're under 10% year-on-year cost reduction challenge. So there are other competing strategies that come together, and it's finding the compromise. You've got to make sure you measure CSAT, the customers are happy, but there are other factors that are just as high important, and we have to take in play when we're designing our strategic outcomes. And I know you were saying last night that you're under a very similar environment. It's relentless. It's all about cost out, but actually keep the end customer in mind as well.
But we as a business are about generating £1.5 billion of cost savings in the next 3 years. So we have to generate £1.5 billion. We've got to create £9 billion free cash. That's two of our strategic drivers. So straight away that the business is going to come and ask you to do that. At the same time, you have to be legal. You have to be environmental. You have to meet all your legislative. That's a given. So I don't even think that sits anywhere as do I choose to be legal or not? No, the choice is I will be legal. The question is how far above legal do I want to be? Then you've got our corporate social responsibility, where do you want to be with renewable energy? That costs money. So it's about, if you're a big company, then you have to take society with you, and that's really important to us as a business, where we're saying by 2020 we're 100% renewable energy, and we've signed up to the scientific targets that were signed off the Paris Agreement. So you have to do all of those things, but as a business you've got to do what's right. You've always got to reduce your controllable costs. So when everybody says I've got to save money, if you don't increase your sales and you don't increase your price, but they all stay static and everybody gets a pay rise, your business has just lost profit. So whether you like it or not, you have to find cost savings. It's an integral part of, no matter what level you are in a business, you have to find those opportunities. Now, if you find enough, you can reinvest it, you can grow, or the business can then reinvest it into price or whatever they want to do to improve profit or sales. So that helps us grow top and bottom line.
you can find the happy ground with all three. One of the things we're looking at is how you bring innovation in. Instead of actually doing physical inspections of buildings, which is very expensive, and again, the scaffolding, get the street permits out, you can use drones. It'll take a load of cost out. You can do it more frequently, do a better job, and radically reduce your costs. So there are some nuggets in there where you can bring all three together and hit all the objectives and meet and beat the expectation.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's, as you say, if you've got engagement at the senior level, it's about helping, for want of a better expression, educating, so people understand all of those things. Look, you can't argue with these. That's your base. Don't even talk about those. They're a given. Everything else, you've got choices, and there's opportunities and risks with all of that. What do you want to do, and how far do you want, to go or not go? And if you think about in the environment that is very customer facing, it's very clear. We either provide a service that helps show our shops or our buildings off in its best way, therefore we're brand enhancers and brand protection, as opposed to just this, you're just doing the bare minimum the whole time, and ultimately we all know it just stores the cost up. You've got to dress it and face into it at some point. So having this blended, equal balance wherever possible is clearly a much better strategy.
I think, it's a good question. It's an important point because we all have inhibitors in our business, and money is probably the number one. But I guess the board and a lot of our customers, frankly, don't care about the buildings being safe. That's our job, and they look to us to do that, and we have to do it. It's our day job. But I'm really interested in what are the levers for the board to understand where we add value, maybe top line, which they go, wow, we didn't realise that what you're doing has a huge impact here. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll put that question open to the panel first and then the audience as well. What do you think are your levers to persuade the board and senior management what we do has huge value? Let's start with Sarah.
Unfortunately, in my industry, it's particularly visual. So without meaning to sound glib, and I really don't because I have a fantastic board, if they can't see it, it doesn't matter. It's all about the wow factor for them and walking into what they consider to be their space and seeing their product, and that to be very flexible because obviously it changes all the time. We broadcast CNN all day, every day in every office. We broadcast Game of Thrones. No, I can't tell you what's going to happen in the next series. So they want to see it always, all the time. What goes on behind the scenes really doesn't matter to them, and that's probably quite right. It's our day job. It's what we're supposed to do, but that's quite challenging from a facilities perspective because we're actually not AV experts. Probably some of you in the room are. Certainly my team isn't. We would have to employ independent consultants to do that for us. But for them, it's all about the visual because that is what we do as a business, and not necessarily about what we're giving our staff. It's probably the lowest cost per head facilities budget I've ever had in my career. We don't give very much away. We don't have an agile work environment. We have quite an old-fashioned static work environment. We don't have a restaurant. We don't have a cafe. We give very little to our staff, and yet we have 180 applicants for every job. So it's quite a difficult thing for me to sell to the board, as we need to be doing more for our staff rather than just having a front of house portrayal of this is what we are as a company, because that is what is important to
So
them.
it's all about brand value to your
All
board
about
and
brand
what your
value.
part you play in brand value.
Yeah.
Jason, what about UBS?
So I think demonstrating those frictionless services, the integration of our FM into a few key partners, the fact that we have workspace coordinators on the floors, that if people have got issues, bearing in mind we've got 750 people on a single floor, so if people have issues, there's someone there immediately to take that problem away and then filter it through our services. Obviously that's a headcount increase, but if you think about the productivity of those 750 people, as we said last night, just 1% improvement can be a massive cost saving. So demonstrating that we do have all the facilities like the restaurant, the gym, the wellbeing centres, but we're doing that cost neutral to the business. We're not subsidising it. And if it does make a profit, we share in that profit, and that profit then gets transferred into delivering better services. So I think that's the kind of things that they
So it's
see.
the employees, with you more looking after adding value to the employees, making them more
I
effective.
think it's people at every level. So if you put people at the centre, as we said earlier, and whether they're a client, whether they're employees, whether they're just people that are connected stakeholders with the business, if you think about, as we did with a new building, think about their journeys, think about their experience, and make that as frictionless as possible. That's where we add value.
Peter, for your organisation.
Loads. The easiest words, I guess I would say three. So we partner first, then customer, and then profit, the last bit. But there's a load of things that were bubbling around in my mind when you were talking. I mean, clearly there's some quantifiables here. Equipment uptime. You know, if a fridge is down, you can't sell chips from it, or whatever. So that translates into sales. So you can absolutely show that you can add value by predicting the thing before it breaks down, preventing it, and then reacting last. And when you do react, do it really, really quickly. Satisfied customers, because ultimately if you get it right, they keep coming back and they tell everybody else and they think it's great. When it's not, you don't. It's easy to figure that one out. And ultimately, you're there to the same point, which is your partners. You know, if your equipment is breaking down, or the environment's not nice, or it causes them an issue that they can't do their day job, they're just not happy. And ultimately, if people come to work to do a great job, then you're there to provide a service. So therefore, we get to do this thing which is make people happy every day and give people something that they really like to do and do it in the best environment. And there's never perfection, because what's perfection? And you're never going to get everything right every single time, and things break down, and people understand that. But ultimately, if you're striving to do that, and you're striving to make the best environment for the people that work in your business and your customers, then you're trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it's people as well, but it's also a trusted partner who you can totally rely on mission critical stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Kevin.
I think, from my experience, is you have to try and explain what you do and put it into terms and relate it to the organisation. So if I think Tesco Maintenance is 1,500 employees in an organisation that's over 300,000 in the UK, we're a very, very small percentage of what people do. So how do you relate to what you do and the impact it has on the organisation? So I think that's a quite important thing. People have to understand and relate to what you do and the consequences of it. You then have to relate that to, I think, the strategic drivers. So at the end of the day, is if the business wants to drive cost out and you need money to invest to drive cost out, you have to relate it to what the business wants to hear. It has to be business driven. Everybody will always tell you that every other business does it better and cheaper. Everybody hears that. So why don't you go and benchmark? So again, if you can get benchmarking data and say, well, actually, do you know what my pounds per square foot in these different formats are, and I've gone out and I've benchmarked, which is what I have done, and I've gone out and worked with some companies who can give me equivalent data for high street type companies, because I'm a bit unique, there's not many who are like me. Then where am I? I'm an upper quartile, lower quartile, I'm in the middle, and where does my trajectory take me to? So again, you start to put into perspective of, and then this next thing they say is, yeah, but your stuff doesn't last very long. Well, where can I go and get industry data that says, actually, I'm from a ROCE perspective, I'm sweating the assets, I'm getting longer than people would expect. So, and by the way, I want to extend it longer. So for me, it's really important that and then it's about how to use the employee engagement surveys that most companies use. And we do one where we go and ask our customers within internally, retail, distribution, fulfillment, what do you think of us? And again, you use that to start pulling the data together to either demonstrate you're doing a good job, because when our chief execs and board members walk around shops, what's the one thing you can do to help me improve your shop? Or sort maintenance out. Oh God, I get it all the time. So we've got employee engagement now from stores that actually say they're doing a good job. And then the question then is then using that to create an engagement tool between your teams and at various levels of organisation. So I do think it is about getting them to understand your business. It's about then linking what you need to do by plan in the same message. Don't give them a message today that changes tomorrow. Give them a message that says over the next 3 years, this is where I think I need to go. This is what I can deliver for you. This is how it links to strategic drivers. This is what it means to you. This is what it means to employees. This is what it means to other parts of the organisation. Oh, and by the way, I'm getting more for less compared to the industry. And by the way, if I look at where I am benchmarking, I'm doing a relatively good job. And I think if you do that sort of stuff, that sort of gets you in a better place. So it's more adult conversation, and it's more collaborative conversation rather than a challenge or people don't quite understand. That's my experience.
Kevin makes a brilliant point there. Data is a great communication tool, whether you're delivering a positive message and giving people that sense of positivity, or whether you're delivering a message that's not going to be welcomed, that can't be argued with. The data is
And how you react to that data and use that data. So it's, people hate filling in surveys and nothing happens. You've got to prove, okay, we've listened to you, this is what we're going to do, having listened to you.
Yeah,
So
do it for the right reasons. Absolutely.
And Kevin, I mean, how many service requests do you have a year from your customers?
Over 2 million.
2 million, yeah? So, huge volume, but a lot of interaction with customers. This question I'd very much like to ask to the room. Like to hear from you leaders out there about what gets the attention of your board or your senior management from facility services. Right, someone in the back here.
My answer might be a bit facetious, but I think it's a reality we all are probably facing. The thing that'll get the attention of our board is anything that saves them money at the moment. So my area is I work a lot in FM technology, covering IT systems and AV. One of the things we're looking at is Internet of Things. Somebody was talking about working out about fridges. For example, if your fridge is down, you can't sell your chips, for example. Smart buildings, monitoring, that's the sort of thing. Internet of Things is a fashionable thing, as is the other phrase, digital transformation. I'm just throwing them out because I think those two expressions may come up in some of the conversations today. If you want to implement technology, and there is a question I did want to ask the panel about technology, but to come back to my point, I think anything that you can implement that's going to have a business case that will show cost savings will get their attention. Not to go too far away from your question, Michael, the question I'd like to ask the panel, if they could pick it up at some point before the session is finished, is how do you see technology as something that can enable you to deliver what you need to deliver as part of your strategies?
Yes, a good question, and we will pose it to the panel in a little bit later. But yeah, thank you. Cost drivers. I think for a lot of us, nearly all of us, if we got a way to save costs, that for sure is something that will get us to the top table. So yeah, it's a fair comment.
Always one.
Thank you. My name's Mark Dew, and I have run a firm of architects called Benchmark Architects, and I'm design director at Pulse, and we're here today to meet some new customers and existing customers. But it's fascinatingly encouraging for me to hear that there's on your side of the table, there's a join up between designing, benefit of design in both new build projects, and the ongoing process. Because my perspective is this is a relatively new forum to me. From my perspective, there's often that problem that you described, where we design a large hotel or a big retail outlet, and it's not until the last 6 months that we meet the operating manager, and then he comes in with a whole new list of things which the key stakeholders never listed. So that is a key problem. But at the same time, this forum, getting connected with people who are running the day-to-day, how the portfolios work, how the buildings, how the strategies work, is one that isn't something that, as far as I'm concerned, my core industry, being in architecture, is often connected with. So it's fascinating to hear that there's a connection there that everybody is very aware of. I'm looking forward to seeing how that could expand further. You mentioned some other professionals who are advising around the process of relocating. What kind of designers feature in that panel? Is it a full thing, or do you go to a centralised, organisation for that feedback? How does that work?
Actually, no, we were quite fortunate. I mean, in my experience with big corporates, there'll always be a preferred partnership, a preferred supplier. And we actually were given the freedom to tender to what we considered to be leading architects in broadcasting entertainment in London. And I think it's public knowledge. No, I best not say, because we haven't yet made the announcement about the relocation, which will be on CNN if anyone actually watches it. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, should I? But we have appointed a professional practice, and it's brilliant because they're in right from day one, before the lease is even signed, and they'll be integral to how that building then works for Turner, which is, I think we'd all agree, exactly how it should be. It seldom is.
Hi, I'm Steve Roots. I'm Chairman of BIFM. I'm also here today as Head of FM at Matalan. Just moving on from the conversations we had last night over dinner, I think one of the key things, and we're talking to our end users, our stakeholders, is that opportunity to involve FM at the start in the design and looking at the life cycle opportunity. So the cost of change obviously is a lot less during the design process once you get into operational phases. I think it's really important if you look at some key projects, mentioned Angel Square in Manchester, where FM was heavily involved from day one. I've worked on with my colleague sat next to me on projects over in the Middle East where the FM was appointed to police the architect from day one. Architects didn't like that, but nearly as bad as being a QS, but it was the process of being able to make sure that operationally that building could be sustainable throughout its whole process, and that the architecture was led by the operational need and requirements.
Yes,
So I think the REBA gateways are a great point of connection. Similarly, we talk about BIM and bringing it back into a collaborative environment. We use the REBA gateways as our point to include the FMs. Every designer, every FM service lead, I made sure they reviewed every single document that related to their service and they signed off on it. And the amount of comments and feedback to all of the designers was invaluable in the end solution. You're right, architects and engineers don't like to be told, but I think they would agree that whilst there was a lot of pain, particularly when you're talking about very specialist areas like how do you design a kitchen, we actually got our chef to sit down with the architect, and he asked me how the design process works, and I said, well, the simplest way is kind of tracing paper and move the blocks around. So we actually got some greaseproof paper, and he moved all of the equipment around to how he operated, and that would never have happened if they weren't engaged.
I think architects have got a lot better. I think they listen to their end users, their customers, more than they've ever done in the past. And it just makes sense. I mean, the people that are going to use the building need to design the building or help design the building. And it's just logical thinking or design thinking, as you just illustrated. So it's a good point. So I'd like to thank all the panellists for their contribution. Thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed the debate. Thank you.